Hi, how are you doing today? It's a weekend coming up, and you still probably can't go out the house. And maybe you're feeling some fear. Let's talk a little bit today about how to overcome our fears because we all have them. But first, who am I to talk about overcoming fears? I am Skywalker Payne. I'm an oral storyteller, energy healer, and the founder of Vibrant Velvet Voice. And one of the ways I help heal people is through my voice, with the sound of my voice and the words that come from my voice. And today I want to talk about overcoming our fears. Because fear, just like anxiety and worry, is one of those things that increases your stress. And increase in stress reduces your immune system, and that leads to illness, whether it's a virus or cancer or even an accident. Because all things are connected. What we think, what we feel, what we say, and of course, what we do. All of these things affect our lives, our story. And fear is one of the biggest obstacles to being healthy, to having a fulfilling life, to knowing joy and love. And why did I think about this today? Because I had to face something I fear just the other day. And that was simply fearing calling people up and inviting them to join an online wellness shopping club. Because I hate rejection. But I actually made 20 phone calls, left messages, talked to some people, got rejected. But guess what? I didn't die. I didn't get hurt. And now I know I can continue on making more calls, calling people back, and grow this aspect of my business. And I'm sure many of you who are listening have had that same experience. You want to help people, you want to go into business, you have a great product, but you don't like getting on a phone and talking to people, particularly strangers, or even worse, talking to people you know when they won't give you support. But the only way you get over that kind of fear is to go through it. Once you realize you can call people up and it will not hurt you, it might hurt your feelings for a little bit. I know part of my problem all my life was my negative reaction to rejection. Instead of sending out manuscripts after I'd been rejected to other publishers, I just stop. And that's not progressive. That does not move anyone forward. So I'm sitting on hundreds of pages that I should have probably sent out over and over and over again. Because you've read the stories of people like the author Dune, the book that became a movie. It was rejected over 20 times. So it's important to think about your fears and to know your fears and to recognize them as a fear. Because I didn't want to say to my coach that I was afraid to call people. In fact, I didn't consciously think about it until reflecting. I realized that was my problem. I was simply afraid. I didn't want rejection. I was afraid to drive. I didn't get my license until I was 40. And I've had some interesting driving experiences, including totaling a truck. Fortunately, I've been blessed and was not hurt and hurt no one. And now I'm not afraid when I get in the car, but I know my limits. I know what I will do. I know what I will not do. And that's what's important too in examining fears. Because when you have a fear about something you have to do or want to do, the only way you can overcome those fears is by doing it, whatever it is. Calling people up, speaking in public, starting a business, running for office, starting a relationship, asking someone out on a date. So many things that we hesitate to do because we don't want to admit even to ourselves that we're afraid, because we're ashamed to be afraid. That's another aspect of fear, is the shame. You're not a strong man if you're afraid. You're not a good woman if you're fearful. So we walk around filled with fear, not doing things that we could do or maybe should do. So now there's other kind of fears. Fears that aren't so easy to resolve. Well, the fear of getting sick. Now, we've been given all kinds of new medical information and wellness information, which should continue under whatever circumstances you are. Always wash your hands. Cover your mouth when you cough. Don't get up and on strangers or people you don't know. But overcome your fear of being ill by taking care of yourself, of your body. Because we've found that people who are most susceptible to any new disease, and there will be others, is because their immune system is weakened, either by several other types of diseases or accidents or a chronic condition. If you have are in those situations, you still can overcome fears. Overcome the fears of having your sickness get worse, overcome the fear of getting worse. How do you overcome those fears? As a nurse, I can tell you, you take better care of yourself and you do what the doctors or the wellness coaches say. You do the exercise, you eat the right food, you go for walks, you take relaxing baths, you do what is necessary to take care of your body to stay as healthy as you can. Then the big fear that looms unspoken over everyone. Hi, Sabrina. Glad to have you. Thank you. Do you have anything that you are fearful of or a fear that you've overcome? Like the ones I've talked about. But the other big fear that looms in more people's minds than one would think is the fear of death. What is interesting is that most people don't think about death until something happens, like what's happened here, either a sickness, a disease, an attack, natural disaster. Then people start to think about death. But in actuality, death should be on our minds every day because it's the reality we cannot control unless we've achieved a certain level of spiritual enlightenment, which I haven't. Oh, you fear attachment, Sabrina. Ah, that's interesting. That's an interesting fear because it raises the question, are you fear of being attached, or are you fear of afraid of what you are attached to? Because attachment is something not to be afraid of, it's something to be aware of and to look at, because ideally we don't want to be attached to something in a way that hinders us and makes us feel fearful. You want to recognize your attachment and then look and see if there's any good benefits to your attachment. Now, I am a Buddhist, and attachment is one of the things we are taught that it's not a really good thing to have, because when you have attachment to something, an attachment in this sense means you're not supposed to love your family or your spouse or your children. And the attachment that we have for them comes from love. But that attachment and that love can become an attachment that is not positive when it prevents us from allowing our love to allow the other person to develop and be who they are. As parents who are attached to their children, who are too restrictive, you know, as people in relationships who are so attached they don't want their partners to have other friends. Or if you get attached to a job or a title or a position or where you live, all of those things you will find, if you're attached to them, when they disappear or when something has to change, everything can crumble, including yourself and your story. So that is why attachment is something you can not be afraid of. Just let it go. Just look at your relationships, look at how you are with people or with the situation, and determine what's a good balance. Because with balance, you know what is happening in your life, and you know what is important, what you need to keep you balanced, literally balanced. Attachment is one of those things that can get in the way of gratitude, because you can be so attached to something that when you lose it or it leaves or it changes or it goes away, you become upset instead of being grateful for a new situation or a new opportunity. So fearing attachment, I would say fear being attached in a way that is not productive. But that's an easy fear you can overcome, because it's more practice of attachment is more of a practice that people can get into, saying, oh, I can't let it go. I can't let it go. And then when you let it go, just like fear, just like the other examples, you'll be surprised. You can actually continue on without that attachment. Now, the one fear I wanted to talk about again is death, because I have been surprised by some people whose lives are being very restricted because they have a lot of conditions they feel make them susceptible to this situation. And I'm and so before I'm going to stop this thought in just a second, just say thank you, Sabrina. I'm glad that helped you in terms of attachment. And you might want to listen to some of the other videos I've done, I talk about gratitude more in depth. And I have also talked about attachment in other ways, but I'm glad that that was helpful. In the same way, in terms of looking at death, because so many of us are attached to this physical life and this limiting thought or idea that human beings with these minds that can go into outer space, that can invent computers, that can allow us to talk and hear each other miles and miles apart, that we would think that this is all there is, this physical manifestation in this time. We are eternal energy. Whatever your religious beliefs, that's good. And however it happens, and religion is is an institution. Spirituality is a practice, and it takes many, many forms. The most important thing is to remember, though, that you are eternal energy. And that inevitably, and we don't know when, unless you are a highly spiritually evolved person, this body will decide it's tired and it will leave us. But our consciousness continues on as energy. Because remember, energy is not created or destroyed. We are eternal beings. We've just forgotten. We've forgotten we're made of star stuff and we are part of the universe. And this physical life is a play for us to learn from and to expand this energy that is the universe, that is endless and boundless and filled with stories of living and life and being and overcoming fears. So when you're feeling fearful or sad or depressed because you're alone and can't go out and party with your friends, or you can't take the vacation you planned, or your children are really getting on your last nerve, just go in a room, even if it's a bathroom, close the door and close your eyes. Take a deep, slow breath through your nose, let it out through your mouth, and remember and say, I am eternal energy. I cannot be created or destroyed. I am eternal energy. And eternal energy is all about transformation. And energy can always manifest and do something to figure out how to resolve whatever challenge you're having. And if you're listening to this or watching this on the video, whenever you do on a computer or phone, you're fortunate enough to have access to technology to pay for it. It means you are resourceful enough and recognize your true energy with all the challenges that are going to be before this whole world. You who know you are eternal energy have nothing to fear, because you will use your energy to achieve what you need for a fulfilling and healing life and story. Sabrina, did you have any questions before I leave? And I appreciate you coming on. And it's good to have you here. And if you're not a member of one of my groups, you might want to check them out. I have Woman of Color, Legacy Story Project, and then Loving a Life That Is Golden, which is open to any and all women. Hi, Karen Stein. So happy to see you. A long person I haven't seen. Interestingly, I've gotten more views from people I knew in Des Moines uh, over the past few days. So that's interesting. And I'm glad to see you. Are you and your family doing well? Have you been doing any video performances during this time? Karen Stein is a musician, and she was kind enough years and years ago when I was in Des Moines to help me record my one and only storytelling CD. And she said things are going well for her and her family. So it's been a pleasure to talk to everyone, particularly Sabrina and Karen. And I hope to see you all again. I hope you'll be able to catch me. These videos right now are unscheduled and spontaneous, but they are continuing because I'm in a 21-day video challenge, and they will continue after the challenge, but I'm going to be setting up more specific times. And I love, yes, Sabrina, it would be great to have you in one of those groups. And I love getting in front of the camera and talking. I'm a storyteller. But it's really exciting when I get some people who engage, and I appreciate your engagement. Whoever comes by later, please put in your hashtag replay. And until then, I will wish you all a good evening, a good night, and fruitful, blessed dreams.